Hi, I'm Luke Kubicek with OHS Magnet, and I did video interviews with Mr. Mark Randall, Mr. Mark Sebring, the school board president, and Mr. Elstead, our superintendent. And these interviews contain lots of stuff on what's going on with this school and possibly a new school and the future of our school. So I'm Luke Kubicek with OHS Magnet, and I'm here today with Mr. Mark Sebring, the school board president. Nice to have you today.
Nice to be with you, Luke. Thanks for inviting me.
So today we're just going to go over a couple questions about the new facilities. So the first one is talk about your involvement in the procedures that have happened.
My involvement actually would go all the way back to when the work had been done on the school district, the other properties in the school district 4 years ago, when originally we invited the architects to come down and help us plan a new high school. And at that point in the game they said, you don't need a new high school, you need to fix up your existing elementary and middle schools, which we have done. And we now find ourselves at a point where, through the help of the architects, through the help of the community task force, and work with the administration, we've reached that conclusion that it's time to do something with your high school.
Okay, all right. So then another question is, now that it is approved last night by the school board, what happens next?
Next step is that Mr. Elstad and members of the administrative team will do legwork, legal legwork, for us to present a bond issue to the public. And we have actually until March 1st to meet the deadlines with the state of Minnesota and the Minnesota Department of Education to get that done. Mr. Elstad and his team of folks will work with our attorneys. They'll work with the various people that will help us formulate the bond proposal that would be presented to the community. And we will vote on that at the last meeting in January. Okay. That will then have all of the particulars, including the size of the bond itself. Okay. And so we know right now that I think that the big number was $138 million. We do know that, and you're well aware of the fact that we've had some corporate sponsorship that will help us bring that number down. And so the couple of things that will happen between now and the end of January would be that Mr. Elstad will continue to work with some of the other corporate entities in town. There may in fact be some additional help that we could possibly get from a couple of the other corporate entities in town. It might bring our number down even further. But once we vote on that at the end of January, it means that is the final number, and then that would set the ball in motion with the preparation for a bond vote in May.
All right.
And I think it's May 14th.
Yep. Okay. That sounds right. I remember being said last night at the meeting. So, all right. So then one other question is, how is the community support helpful in getting it moving and getting it going? And
that's a great question. There are probably going to be several different community entities that will push for this. Understandably, we as the school board cannot be the drivers in that. That there has to be actually a task force or a group of volunteers that would actually pick up the mantle on that and carry it forward. We can provide them factual information, and you know all of that. We would talk about what would the building, I don't want to say necessarily look like, but how big of a building is it, how much square footage is it, and how many basketball courts will there be, and how big is the auditorium, and how many classrooms will there be, what does the layout generally look like. All that information we can provide to the Vote Yes committee, but we, the school board, cannot be the drivers of the Vote Yes committee.
Okay. And then one last question is, the task force recommended the demolition of the existing high school building. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that repurposing is a better option, or do you think that the demolition is a better option?
Luke, I went to this school. I went to Otana High School almost 40 years ago, And so I have strong feelings.
Yeah.
And so I know how people feel when we talk about the idea that we would demolish and bring this building down to the ground. I felt weird about it when I first thought about it as well. But I guess what we found was when you start adding up all of the costs that would come with keeping and maintaining this building, and you know as well as I, the portion of this building that people would love to see retained is the oldest.
The pillars.
Right. And this oldest section of the building is the part that would take the most money. And when we talk to the community, you're not surprised when we say there are needs and there are wants. We need a new high school, but we don't want to walk away from our old high school.
Yeah.
We want to save it. We want the, and those are wants. And we have to be honest with ourselves and say they become very, very expensive wants. If we're going to present what we need to the community, it has to be straightforward and it has to be with the taxpayer's wallet in mind. And we cannot ask the taxpayers to pay for wants.
Yep. Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming in today.
Thanks, Luke.
The bond amount will be coming out on Monday, and this is the amount that voters will be voting on whether they want to approve the new school or not.